Hey there, real estate junkies. Before we dive into today's episode, we've got some game changing resources to help you start buying and selling real estate on terms, the smart, creative way. Want to learn how to invest with little or no money down? Grab your free ebook, The 4 Game Plans, and discover the exact strategies we use every day. Get it now. The link is in the show notes. Looking for a complete step-by-step system to start making 3 paydays per deal? Check out the Quantum Leap System, our home study course packed with everything you need to close your first terms deal. Need a personalized strategy? Book a free one-on-one strategy session with one of our coaches. Just use coupon FREE3 at checkout. Ready to take action? Join the 3 Payday Apprentice Program and start working toward real estate success with direct mentorship. Want hands-on training with us? Spend 3 days at our In the Trenches Bootcamp, where we'll work side by side to lock in deals. And don't miss our biggest event of the year, QOS Live 2025. Connect with top investors, sharpen your skills, and take your business to the next level. Secure your spot today. All links are right below in the show notes. Click now and start building your real estate empire. Now, let's get into today's episode. Ready to Real Estate Junkies Coast to Coast. I'm your West Coast representative, Rusty Ham. We are going to play an episode that Rick was on with Smart Real Estate Coach and our mentor, Chris Prefontaine. So enjoy.
So how many employees did you have at your job working for the government? And how much time did that take of your days and weeks? Just so they have a context, like how hard was it for Rick to transition?
Yeah, and at one point I had 180 people who I had responsibility for. When last couple years, I had about 70 some odd people that reported to me. I would schedule my time to make calls during lunch times and like 4:30 to 6 p.m. And fortunately, I had set up backup times per your recommendation, and there was always lunchtime. Never ended up being a lunchtime. There was always fire drills to take care of. So it was really working on my time management skills, which with your help and team's help, I was able to do that.
All right, welcome back to the Smart Real Estate Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Pre. Today we're going to dive into a nice chat with an amazing individual in our community, because this individual has gone through literally all the sort of the levels, I'll call it. And whether you're a longtime listener or new to our show, levels just mean the different ways people can participate with us. And you're going to be in for a treat either way. Rick Abiatti, and I are going to dive into a little bit of his journey, but we did some of that on episode number 371, just so you know. So we're not going to go too deeply in that. Episode 371. Now, I want to help you understand who Rick is. Rick actually spent 30 years in the defense industry. Now, I share that with you because he has escaped his W-2 and he is with us. Now, despite making that change, and he'll talk about the dates, and you can see that in that past episode, he actually founded his company, Colony Property Investments, back in 16. What the heck happened then from 16 till, say, 21, 22, and why, I think is super important. And then you're going to hear Rick and I talking about his experience so far with the live and virtual events he's been to with us, because there's some really cool nuggets in here you're going to hear us talk about that I want to make sure you grasp, because we're sitting at the half-year point, right? We're in June. And I want you to get to the point where you get to the end of 24 here, you've experienced some of what I call stacking, and you get a chance to wrap up your year and go, you know what? I am super glad I did that because blank. And you fill in the blank, you're going to be able to when you jump in the trenches with us, all right? All right, guys, I want to make sure to remind you about our QLS Live event. We've been hosting this thing since 2016 in a basement, and now we have a brand new facility in Boston, Massachusetts. This year, 2024, it's going to be September 23rd and 24th. That's a Monday and a Tuesday. It makes it easy for travel. It is literally right next to the airport. Go to smartrealestatecoach.com/QLS Live and use the coupon code podcast50. That's going to give you 50% off. I'll see you there. All right, Mr. Rick, with that as an intro, welcome back to the show, buddy.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, so you're an old hat now on the YouTube video, so they're used to seeing you But for those those Wicked Smart listeners that maybe haven't seen you, and by the way, for the listeners, if you're listening to this on the podcast, jump over to YouTube because we park all the videos on YouTube now, and you're going to want to see us there. You probably don't want to see me, but you're going to want to see Rick. Rick, quick summary, your journey, because as you just heard, all I mentioned was you were 30 years working for the defense industry and that you made your break. Expand on that a little bit, if you could. And then specifically, as I just alluded to set you up, you started a business in 16-ish, but what happened between then and us? That's a gap I wanted you to fill too, if you could.
Yeah, I had renovated a couple of my own homes, and I thought real estate is where the money's at, especially if you want your financial future taken care of. So I decided to get into wholesaling and flipping, and I quickly realized flipping was not a thing with a busy W-2. Just too much headache, and having renovated a house, trying to do that during the weekends and nights was just not good. So I went into wholesaling. Didn't have much success there. Number one, I was a solopreneur. I was pretty much on my own. And number two, the competition out there's a lot of wannabe investors out there and a lot of lowballing, just way too much competition for the amount you get in return. So I had set up my LLC in 2016. And in 2021, I had seen a podcast or a webinar that you and Zach did with Anderson Business Advisors. And I said, this looks like the ticket. Of course, I was cautious. I'd invested in other programs before and didn't quite know if this would work. It sounded great, too good to be true, as we always hear. And so I jumped into 90-day Jumpstart. And before that was over, I quickly realized, wow, the proof is there. There's enough people doing deals, people running after it. So I jumped in, upgraded all the way to starter.
Let me explain for the Wicked Smart listener too. Thank you. So associate programs are on our website. You can check those out. That's what he's referring to when he says starter. There's starter version and high six. I just want to give you context as a listener. The 90-day Jumpstart program Rick mentioned, we still have, and that is a group coaching program. It's really set up for people, one of two scenarios. One, hey, I'm not quite sure about me yet in this program, or I'm not quite sure about you guys yet. I'm not sure I trust you yet, or I don't have the resources, or I think I don't have the resources. So that's why that was developed, just so you guys who are watching this and are listening to this have a context of what Rick said. So you went from 90-day Jumpstart, you said, wow, okay, this is for real, went to starter, and then what?
And in starter, I really quickly realized we're there when you say effort for effort. Steve Murnick was my coach at the time, and I had an appointment, my first appointment in Massachusetts, central Massachusetts, and Steve went on that appointment with me, physically went on the appointment with me, and that's when it really hit me. Between that and really focusing on my why, which is one thing that Steve had worked on with me, and once I nailed that down, and it wasn't just, I want to leave my W-2, and I want to have a good financial future. It was drilling into 5-6 levels deep until it became emotional. And that's when things took off. And I said, okay, I'm going to upgrade to immersion. And Zach was the coach of that at the time. And I said, I might as well be coached by the family team. And then about 6 months later than that, you called me while I was on vacation and said, I'd like to take on 5 associates for nightly accountability. And I thought, this is a no-brainer. However, the amount of money it cost to do that, and I had a different mindset, spending money versus investing in myself. And you worked with me on that. I upgraded to high 6, and then subsequently after that, I upgraded to chairman.
Yeah, we're going to really confuse people. Now, chairman doesn't exist anymore. It's a special level we created for 2 times only. And I say we're not doing it anymore just because it's an enormous commitment on my part to pull that off. And I don't think my wife would appreciate that again. So the chairman's level is just the highest level we've ever created. We did 2 experiments with that. So Rick, I wanted you to bridge the gap from 16 till now because a lot of people do what you did. They'll set up a biz and they'll either not really get off the ground or they'll experience what you said. They'll have a W-2. Most do coming in our community. They're not like, everybody's not like free. Yeah, I got this full-time availability now. They're not. So they get into flipping or wholesaling. They realize this is another job and I don't have time for another job. And then it just causes heartaches. If that's you out there listening, please understand this is why this niche was created, the terms niche. After the crash for myself and then for Rick and the coach, they all had their own journey in, but they all had W-2s. So they're able to bridge the gap with the way we do it with the trademark 3 paydays. So thanks for sharing that, Rick. Couple things. The time you spend at your job, I don't want to leave that. I know we probably talked about in the other episode we just sent him to, but let's nail that now because, again, people say, yeah, but he probably wasn't as busy as me. So how many employees did you have at your job working for the government? And how much time did that take of your days and weeks? Just so they have a context, like how hard was it for Rick to transition?
Yeah, and at one point I had 180 people I had responsibility for. When last year, actually the last couple of years, I had about 70 some odd people that reported to me.
A lot of people.
I would schedule my time to make calls during lunch times and like 4:30 to 6 p.m. And fortunately, I had set up backup times per your recommendation, and there was always lunchtime, never ended up being a lunchtime. There was always fire drills to take care of. So it was really working on my time management skills, which with your help and team's help, I was able to do that.
Yeah, because everybody's different, right, Rick? You've now seen this take place with different people. Like everyone has a different schedule, a different why, and a different reason, different pathway into full time. Not all the same. Yeah. You mentioned the why before we jump to the events and your experience around events and what those mean to you. Talk about the why a little bit, just a couple more mentions of that. You said we went 5 or 6 or 7 levels deep. And then I want to give these guys, as you were saying that, I thought, okay, I'll give these guys a chance to do that personally with me. And I'll give them a link to do that in a second. I'll give them a free call. I just literally just thought of that. So go ahead and talk about what you're talking about with that so I can then offer that to them.
All right. So my initial why, of course, was to leave my W-2. Working into my 70s just was not appealing. And having a financial future that I didn't have to worry about where the next paycheck was coming from. That was my why. When I talked during my coaching calls with Steve, he said, okay, Rick, why do you want to leave your W-2? I commute into Boston and rush hour traffic and everything else. And he said, why? I said, what do you mean, why? He really dug into that. And it got to the point where, one of my whys was be able to travel around the world, go on vacation when I want to go on vacation on my own time and wherever I wanted to go. So it drilled down to the point of where are you going to go? Where are you planning on going? What do you plan on doing? When you're walking down the streets, what's it smell like? What stores are you going into? What are you buying? Really in a lot of detail. And it got to the point that it really snapped inside of me and saying, I have to do this. There's no alternative. And that's what really drove me. And that's what shifted me from the 15 months it took me to get my first deal. That was all mindset. It was confidence in myself and having my why. And that's when it really hit. And I've seen that with other associates that we work with. The same thing. You can tell when that light bulb really goes on.
Yeah, you brought up a whole bunch of cool things, just not one answer. And that, so what came to light just then is 15 months to your first deal. I want everybody to hear that because some people do it in 30 and some people do it in 2 years. And I think we've had even over that. And most of that is whatever's in the noggin, right? That's not skill set. Everybody can learn the skills. Okay, so that's important. What's important here, I think, I just thought of this before I give them a way to do the why exercise with me. I'm happy to help every listener here. You had a Payday 3 cash out, I don't know, a week or two ago.
Correct. Yep.
I think it was your deal 1 or 2?
It was my second deal.
Second deal that actually cashed out first. So a Payday 3, it means for the Wicked Smart listener, if you're new to our niche, the terms niche is such that we trademark 3 paydays. Rick got a Payday 1 on that deal back, what year, Rick?
2023.
2023, Payday 1.
Actually, it was August of 2022.
22 August started. Okay. Yeah, that's right, because they cashed a little bit early, but we're still we're early here. So August of 22, you get a Payday 1 of roughly how much?
It was around $8,000, and we planned over time additional down payments. So it got up to $15,000.
Okay, so $15,000 between August, the last 18 months, let's say. Then you got Payday 2 every month of how much roughly spread?
I believe it was around $300.
Okay, pretty close to our average. So $300 a month, 15 grand up front. Nice. So, okay, so I want everybody to think about this. You launch a deal. This is the trademark system. You get a payday, in this case, smaller, 15 grand, good one though. Then you get $300 a month just by launching that one deal. And then last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, Rick, you cashed out Payday 3 at how much?
$61,000.
$61K. So I want you guys to see that that comes to fruition, because one of our values is all deals conducted with the highest integrity. Our focus is to cash buyers out. Do we have a 100% success rate? No, you can't. Banks don't have that. But we have the highest success rate that I know of people teaching and doing deals like this, because most don't go through the grueling process of qualifying the right buyer, so they are a true buyer. And as such, we default somewhere between 2 and 10%. Most people I know of, Rick, is maybe have a 10 or 20% success rate, never mind default rate. So anyway, I thought I'd add that. Nothing to do with what we're talking about. All right.
The total paydays it fell short of my 6 figures per deal, but it was around $85,000.
Around 80 something, all said and done. All right. Sweet.
That's because she cashed out in 18 months rather than 24 months. And the deal was planned out over 4 years.
But I don't think anyone would cry over 80 something grand over 18 months. Come on, think about it, guys. 18 months, one deal. Still a great story, Rick. So before I forget, here's what you guys can do before I ask Rick what his experience has been surrounding events and hours in particular. And that is, you can go get a free call with me. And I know I put myself out there in a podcast saying this, and I've done it on a few shows lately because I want to interact with you. Go to smartrealestatecoach.com/Chris pre-call. That's Chris, CHRIS, pre call. I will personally be talking to. You won't get a salesperson. You'll get me. And I want to help you with your why. I want to help you with any obstacles you think might be in your way, because most of it is just think. And I want to help you get to some of your goals. So smartrealestatecoach.com/Chris pre-call. Rick, let's talk about, we have QLS Live coming up. We've been doing it since 2016. You've been coming to our events in general, not just QLS, since what year? 21?
2021.
21. Okay, so we're probably going on your 3rd QLS Live, or because of COVID, there was some virtual. Actually,
Yes.
It's 4th one, 24th, your 4th one.
Yeah.
Okay, and you had a bunch of events in between. Talk to these guys that may have been listening to us for a few years now. We've got over 400 episodes, or they just started listening and they might know nothing about us. Why have the events been important to you personally? And then I'll have you address them for something else.
Yeah, these events, and you ratchet it up every single event. They're amazing. You cannot miss it, because the interaction that you get, not only all the speakers that you bring in and everything, and being around each other as a community and being alongside of those people that are really crushing it, that rubs off. To be successful, you have to hang with the 6 people that are successful and that are driving towards what their goals are. But the interaction, not only during the event, but especially after the event, where you're meeting whether it's at dinner or in the evenings, and getting more to the personal level of each other, and just communicating on a personal level just makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And the nuggets that you take out of these events, if you just miss one event, you don't know if it's that nugget you need to really push you forward.
Okay, so that last piece you said is cool, because I say this a lot. If there's one hint that Rick or a coach gives you, or one script, because we're going to be going over scripts that you pick up and go, oh man, I can try that next week. And you pick up one, forget 5, 10, people have all these goals. You pick up one extra deal this in 2024 or 2025. It could be worth anywhere from $450 to $45,000, to $350,000. That's our new high in the community. That's pretty cool. Or you're doing a deal and you pick up a nugget, to use Rick's words, that helps you eke out a little bit bigger payday, 1, 2, or 3, because we have those strategies all the time. Yeah, couldn't have said it better, Rick. So why else should they attend? Anything that comes to mind? Think back to you when you first joined. If you could perhaps maybe have been to an event like immediately, like anything else you want to share with them for someone on the outside?
Yeah, one of the things that when you're sitting at the tables or in the evenings and you're talking to each other, whether it's a speaker, one thing comes to mind. You had Peter Taunton at one of our events.
Yeah, he came on stage with his dog.
Yep. And to me, that was a little intimidating. Peter, as successful as he is, I had that kind of imposter theory or imposter syndrome where, who am I to talk to Peter Taunton? He's so down to earth. And outside the event, and again, this is one of those outside the event things, I had about a 15-minute discussion with Peter.
I forgot that, actually.
And that just blew my mind. and he was just down to earth. He really had me start focusing and having grit. That's his big thing, is having grit, and especially with his history in business. But yeah, he told me to focus on my one thing mainly and work towards that. Yeah, that was invaluable, but it's little things like that. I shouldn't say little things, those huge things.
Yeah.
That really make a difference. And had I not been at that event, I wouldn't have had that.
Yeah, I really did forget you had that conversation. I know I've set some of the high six people up in our private group with Peter to call, and you probably had that conversation too, but I didn't realize you literally ran into him outside the event there. That's cool. Rick, I really appreciate you jumping on, buddy. The QLS Live event for the Wicked Smile listener to hear is, again, I'm going to say it a few times on the show here, September 23rd and 24th, and Twisting My Arm, the team, primarily my daughter and son-in-law, have moved the event to Boston. It's probably better for you, Rick. It's probably better for a lot of people because Providence Airport and then getting to Newport is not the easiest, but I loved it because it was close to my house. I lost this year. You guys get to go to Boston. It's a better facility, and it's way easier to get to. It's 2 T-stops from Logan Airport if you're flying in. Go to smartrealestatecoach.com/QLS Live just so we can give you this coupon code. Use the coupon code podcast50. You'll get a 50% off the ticket price. Rick, thanks again, buddy. Any last minute thoughts, nuggets, or things I didn't ask that you want to share?
No, I think that's pretty much all of it. Having been, I said it took me 15 months to get my first deal. That once I upgraded to high 6, that's when things really took off. And shortly after upgrading to high 6, I had my first deal come through. That was a $90,000 payday 1. So they're not all, I'll say, small paydays.
I should have said that. My bad. Good that you added that.
So $90,000 payday 1, and then the second month and the third month after that, I had 2 more deals, and then a few months later, I had a 4th deal. So once it starts, it just rolls.
I do have another question for you. Now you said that, you've sparked something else. So a lot of these people listening, wonderful, wicked, smart listeners they are, some of them have been in other coaching programs, Rick. And I definitely have heard numerous times how people get a little annoyed or pissed off. They leave the program because they don't get attention, or because they get stuck in a group, or because they can only email. How many times do you and I interact? Because you're in my group, you're in the higher level. And how many times do you interact with your students? Just address that, because I want them to understand what we do without putting words in your mouth.
I do nightly accountability with you, Chris, and it can be blunt at times, which we all need it at times, because I specifically remember when I left my W-2 and the following week I had left a message one night for you that said, Chris, I made 28 dials and asked a few questions, and at 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock, you're on your exercise bike, a little bit out of breath, and you said, Rick, huge red flag here. You're full-time real estate. Why did you only make 28 dials? I only did that once, but I needed to hear it. But so we talk every single day. And a lot of times the message I get in the morning from you, and we communicate through voice text, quite often you'll say, Rick, let's jump on a live call today and discuss this a little bit more.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you do the same with you do at some level, talk about you and your students because you're a coach, and then we can wrap up.
Yep. With all of the associates that I coach, I depended on when we say we match effort for effort. Some people, I'm on there multiple times a day communicating with them, either through Slack or on the phone, or doing 3-way calls with them with sellers or working deals with them. So yes, just about everybody I'm on quite frequently, or critiquing calls. There's just a whole range of help that we do give, which you do not get through any other program.
Yeah, I said I think you might have been on the call last week. I said to one of the groups, we were literally begging them to put more calls into the call critique channel in Slack so that me and you and the other coaches could critique them. And I said to them, for the Wicked Smile listener to hear, it's not like those are fun for us. And it's not like those are only a few minutes. We take a lot of time. Those are painful sometimes, but we know it's the quickest way for them to get from point A to B. So if you're listening now, please understand we're in this for one reason and one reason only, get you to a deal. Because if you get to a deal sooner than later and it's profitable, why would you leave the Wicked Smile community? You wouldn't. And so that's our goal. We want that for you. You will realize that if you're locking arms with us, and you'll be able to hang out with Rick and the other coaches at the event. So Rick, thanks again. After I said we were done, I thought of those things from your awesome comments. So thanks again for being on, buddy.
All right, thanks a lot, Chris.
All right, and that wraps up another Wicked Smart Masters class with Mr. Rick Abiatti. Before we go, I want to remind you guys one more time, Rick and I hammered it, but the QS Live event, Boston, September 23rd and 24th. It's a must attend, guys. If you have an inkling about being serious in the real estate business, this is it. And I will tell you that not many of you listening, because you wouldn't be listening if this wasn't you, not many of you listening wouldn't love to have the experience that Rick has had. Why not put yourself in a position to do that? All right. Can't wait to meet you in person. Make sure you come up to me at the event. Thanks for tuning in, guys, to the Smart Real Estate Coach podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode. Rick's experience can and will empower a lot of people, guys.